Yeah, I'm gonna be short. I'm tired. We got better today. That was the best practice of the year, right? Ooh, this thing's a little wide. I don't know if it was me or the table. Um, Man, a lot of situational football, red zone, third down. That was awesome. That was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun. This group, I told you last time, this group is fun to coach, man. It really is. A lot of guys wanting to please their coaches. Great competition, man. We got some good players that are continuing to get better, and we're building a lot of depth right now. We're going three groups, man. And we're getting some of these young guys some work. Some of these older guys that maybe need to knock off some rust, that haven't played in a while, that transferred in. They're starting to hit their stride, and you're starting to see a little bit of separation in some areas, which is really good to see. But we're not nowhere near to close to playing a game. We need every single one of these practices, every one of these meetings and walkthroughs to get where we need to get. But man, this was a really good day. Best practice of the year.
When you say you're starting to see some separation, you mean guys starting to solidify themselves as starters? And if so, what positions are you looking at?
Yeah, I think some starters, some guys that, hey, is this guy going to be able to make the travel squad? Because that's the thing right now, right? Sunbelt, I believe, went up to 72 this year. It was 70, so we got 2 extra spots. I fought for that. I thought that was real important at our head coaches meeting. And you're starting to see some of those guys that, hey, like, if you want to make the travel squad, if you want to get on the plane, you got to be great on special teams. You got to be attention to detail. You got to prove yourself, worthy of making the travel squad. So I think you're seeing some of that, and some guys stepping up and making some plays. So, like I said, I don't think we're ready to name starters and all that yet at every position for sure. But I think we're getting a little bit closer, maybe to that 2 deep. In some areas, we still got some work to do. We're actually in pretty good shape health wise. I think that's been good. I think AJ's done a great job of keeping our guys healthy, and Coach Youth, I think they trained really well this off season, and we're doing a great job in the sports medicine department of taking care of these guys, and IVs and cold tubs and hot tubs. That new, I know y'all have seen it over there, that new hydrotherapy room with the cold tubs and hot tubs and all that have been a game changer for us. So all those little details as we continue to rise this program are going to be big, and everything matters for sure.
In terms of like quote unquote winning practice, which side of the ball won practice?
Man,
offense or defense?
Yeah, defense got after us in that first red zone period. Man, they flat got out after us, and that was really good to see. Right then, we did some third down red zone work, game on the line, different situations, and I thought it was pretty back and forth. But I thought the offense, got the better of the defense. So I thought it was a pretty even day. I like the way the offense responded. In that second half of practice, and we had some really good situations. Hey, you're down 6 points, right? You're down 6 points. You score a touchdown. Can be the celebrations. Nothing after the play, right? To deter kind of what's going on with that next point after attempt. So all those things, everything like that happens in practice, we got to learn from it and continue to grow. And I think we're a more mature football team this year. And when stuff like that happens, I think our coaches are doing a really good job of hitting it, right on the head.
Yeah, with this defense having to play so many starters, like, how do you like the defense so far at this point in fall camp?
Yeah, I think we're doing a good job. I think we got to continue to, obviously get better. But it's all going to be about stopping the run and defending those one-on-one, opportunities. And I think we're making the most of it. I think we're doing some more one-on-one reps, receivers, DBs, and some more situational work. And I think that's going to help us. Just like I said, I'm continuing to grow as a coach as well, and continue to put these guys in different situations to help them succeed on Saturdays.
Who stood out on the one-on-one reps, rather like cornerback or like wide receiver wise?
I the same thing. I thought it was some back and forth. Chris Don's really good. Covering him one-on-one is really tough. So he's someone that stood out to me. I thought the tight ends had a really good day. I thought Tyron Smith had a really good day. I think he had a little bit of a slow start. He's one of those guys that talked about maybe knocking some of the rust off. I think he's continuing to get better. We're working 3 groups, but we have a bunch of guys, work, so the opportunities are limited. So when you get that opportunity, you got to make the most of it. And I think he's someone that capitalized on his day. He's nowhere near where he needs to be, not even close. But he's continuing to get better. So I think Bo and Chris have been pretty dominant throughout the first half. But defense is they got some guys over there that can play too.
After a week of practice, what do you think is the deepest position you have out there?
Ooh. Probably probably running backs and corners. And I think the corner group's really good. I like those corners a lot. Got a lot of length, a lot of speed. They're continuing to learn how to play, but I like the running back room and that corner room. I could corner / edge, tight ends be another one. So if we give you 2 groups, running backs and tight ends, and then probably those DBs over there, corners and safeties. I think both of those guys have done a really good job.
With so many starting positions kind of, open, ideally, when do you want to get all that solidified before y'all hit the ground for Eastern Michigan?
Obviously, the closer we get, the just naturally it's going to happen. But I'm hoping, not necessarily to evaluate. Just I think we got to use our depth to our strength and play a bunch of guys. Especially on defense, it's a little bit harder on offense. But especially on defense, being able to rotate that defensive line. That's something we've continued to do since I've been here to use that depth on the defensive line because those edges, man, are really good. Khalil and JoJo and Kennard and Don Terry, and we got a couple other guys in that group that are showing up. So I like that group.
Speaking of the defensive line, how's Michael coach?
Nwakachu?
Yeah, how's he looking? I saw he was on the bike today.
That wasn't Michael.
Oh wait, okay, no.
Yeah, that wasn't Michael, but yeah, I usually don't talk about injuries in here, but yeah, Michael's he's doing a good job. He's got another one of those guys that got to continue to knock off for us. He was at Tyler Junior College, #1 defensive lineman and JUCO guy in the country. He goes to Syracuse and doesn't play, and he's continuing to learn how to practice and learn how to kind of play our style of defense because it is different, and that's one thing I think people just because he's a good player. Right, you got to learn how to play within the system. We're a 4-down attack style, vertical, penetrating defense. So a lot of these guys, if they've been in a 3-down, for example, if they're going like this on every play, they're going like this every play. So that's got something that's got to be taught, and the techniques have to be taught. So that's probably the biggest thing with the defensive line is learning how to play our style of defense.
Last week you were talking about the offense. It was still some growing pains. First couple days of practice, a lot of newness around. How is it after a week? Is it still getting to know the offense, or now is it like, okay, now it's repetition, getting this part down?
I think we've been really good on offense. I wouldn't necessarily. I think every day we've shown flashes. I think it's just the consistency, and those ones have been pretty consistent on how we do things and all that. Just when you're repping 3 groups, the 2s and the 3s, you have a bunch of new faces and a bunch of guys still learning the playbook. So I think that's probably more the inconsistency. I think the ones have been pretty consistent, and that's I'm talking about ones. That's a bunch of guys in there with the ones, especially at some positions, especially running backs and tight ends. But the O-line and some of those other positions, that they're kind of not necessarily solidified, but you're seeing some separation there, like I said.
Yeah, on offense, we always talk about, the quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers, but how do you feel the offensive line is at this point, especially as you were saying with those 1s and 2s and having to switch them?
Yeah, I think there's some real battles between the 1 and the 2s still going on. Obviously, you have some guys that have been here that have taken a lot of reps and kind of know what we're doing. And for the most part, you're switching out one guy. For example, T-Lock's going from guard to center in some plays. And so that's been really good to see. And so when that happens, right, you slide somebody else in there with that group, a Lysander or Mecca or whatever. Got some good interior battles going on. Got some good tackle battles going on as well with a guy like Cam Schultz that's coming in and doing some really good things on offense. So I think it's been very productive. We're getting better. But obviously the closer you get to that game time, right, who's our best 5, or really maybe who's our best 6, who's our best 7, and maybe we rotate some of those guys in there early. But first game is 7 p.m., second game's in the Dome, so I don't worry too much about the fatigue of it. Just more getting those guys reps and make sure they're ready to go for the stretch.
How important is it to have Teller and Dorian on the line, because they started last year. Do they really help with the chemistry of getting those guys gelling?
Yeah, I think so. I think both of those guys are pretty quiet by nature. So I think it's just continuing to work hard and working together. The offensive line is just so much of a chemistry thing and working together and communicating. And those guys are doing a really good job, and so especially like a day like a red zone period where we're going to be more aggressive on offense, you got to protect, and that's why I told the quarterbacks in the red zone, man, you got to be decisive, right? You got to be decisive. Everything happens faster. You got to be decisive. You got to go 1-2, check down to run, throw the ball away, understand the situation. Are we down 6? Is it a tie ball game? Are we down 3? All those things. We put those guys in those situations today as much like a game as we could.
And we talk a lot about QB1.
Yeah.
But what about QB2? How important is that to solidify
Yeah.
who QB2 is? And
Yeah.
what's the competition like throughout the ranks of the quarterback room?
It is. It's huge, and I think that position, as it goes, I think you're seeing some separation there, and I think you're seeing some guys do some really good things. But I think consistency and making the right decision, and not necessarily the physical part of it. Obviously we wouldn't recruit them if they can't make the plays, but making those decisions go a long way. That's 1, 2, 3. That's everybody. But those guys that can continuously make the right decisions are going to be the guys just very naturally that you trust more to go out there and play. It's not always about the physical talent.
Speaking of the quarterbacks, is Nate participating in these battles, or is he still recovering from that?
Yeah, no, he's participating. He's doing a really good job, and he's continuing to get better every day. Like I said, he was continuing. He still is. He's getting healthier each and every day. But Nate is, first off, he's an unbelievable person, unbelievable for the room. Great attitude every day. I love that kid, and he's a winner for sure. I do have a lot of trust in Nate. Talking about trust and consistency, got a lot of trust in Nate.
You happy to be back in Central Texas?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's. That's what I tell some of these recruits that go off, man. Like, what are you doing? Why do you want? Why do you want to go way out there? Stay right here.